Ladies and gentlemen, we have an awesome thing for you today. We're going to be talking with the people behind the Weakauras. Yes, that add-on that has riddled every video and discussion around add-ons in World of Warcraft for possibly the last 10 years. Let's find out about it, let's feel the truth about it, and also how they feel about how their add-on, which was developed all the way back in Kata, Wrath of the Lich King, has now become to the point where, if you check Twitter, the Race to World First guilds are in fact employing people to use this add-on full-time for them. So let me introduce you to Stan. How's it going, Stan?
Hey, Mike. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm pretty excited, honestly. I'm pretty excited because I use your work all the time and have done for years and years and years. And I've no idea who makes it, who does whatever with it, and what they feel about it in any way.
Well, we are a team now. It's actually 4 people working on Weakauras at the moment.
Yeah, 4 people working on this, and you're the project leader over at Weakauras, and you've been with the team since 2012?
Exactly, yeah. That's when I started contributing to it. I didn't start the add-on. I joined in 2 years in, I guess.
And what was your background then? Is it in programming, or what was it that led you to join the Weakauras team?
So I was always into programming, but when I started playing World of Warcraft, I was introduced to add-ons pretty fast because all of my friends were already using add-ons.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a big perfectionist when it comes to my own UI. And then I just reached a point where I had to make changes to the add-ons myself, and then I had to learn how. And that's when I got started. And at some point, I felt like I had to change something in Weakauras when I found it, and something wasn't working like I wanted it to. And then, yeah.
So did you reach out to the team like, hey, this is not working right, this is how you fix it, something like that? Or is there an underground add-on community? Because this is predating Discord, right? This is long before we had things like Discords where people would join and stuff. Where do add-on developers congregate? And do you guys talk to each other?
Yeah, so nowadays we do have a Discord, or actually several Discords, but back then the biggest community were basically 2 parts, the wowinterface.com community and the WoW's community.
Oh shit, WoW's.
Yeah, that's basically what is CurseForge now. So back then when it was WoW's and CurseForge, we had an SVN repository. That's a version control system. But back then it was one server for everyone, and each add-on was just a folder. So it was super Wild West when people were just pushing changes left and right to stuff they didn't even belong to. So at some point they started introducing permission levels, but yeah, most people kept their add-ons open to the public. And so yeah, there was a huge community. Well, I wouldn't say huge. There was a community of people who basically built up the whole groundwork for all our add-ons that you know today, like Bigwigs or DBM, all started there basically.
Are you telling me that in the old days there was just a folder on a server with all the add-ons in it that people were downloading by the millions, and you could just drop in and change that file even if you had nothing to do with that add-on at all?
At the start, yep, pretty much.
Oh my god.
I mean, you had to have an account, and you had to be approved, so there was this process. And I think for some add-ons there were permission stuff at the start, but you were still allowed to leave it open to edit from anyone in the community. But yeah, pretty Wild West at the start.
Well, yeah, especially, I don't know if you're aware, recently the G-Shade developer has basically tanked his whole business by putting some malicious code into his add-on, which caused people's PCs to restart if they were using a competitor's add-on. And he wasn't happy about it. And that's it. Everybody's just uninstalled G-Shade immediately. that was how quickly it was overnight. It completely killed his add-on, but to know that was something that may have been going around.
So the good part there is that everyone also saw all the changes. We had IRC chat channels where we had bots just spamming all the changes coming in. So the potential that something wrong or malicious could be committed was fairly low because people were just looking at all the add-ons all the time.
Ah, okay. So you had some security, at least a log of what was going on.
I wouldn't call it security, but yeah, we had a log.
That's fair. So you can see it's like the guild banks in WoW, right? You can see who stole it. We can figure that out. Yeah, I get that. Now, one of the things obviously the reason we wanted to have this conversation is add-ons have been a big deal in the MMO community, certainly probably for the last 6 months, but it came to a head recently with what happened in Final Fantasy XIV, with the guilds getting banned because they don't allow any add-ons at all. And there's been a lot of crossover because Shadowlands didn't do particularly well. A lot of players play both games, and they're like, hey, I actually prefer this world of no add-ons. But World of Warcraft took a different direction. They endorsed add-ons from day one. And now yours is arguably the premier add-on that exists in World of Warcraft, to the point where you have a full team. People are employing people full-time just to use your software. And also, obviously, the main brunt of assault when people come to, like, let's get rid of add-ons. Weakauras are ridiculous. It's a pretty common sentiment you'll find a lot of places is, Weakauras is the problem. Should we ban Weakauras? Weakauras is amazing. I can't live without Weakauras. The vice versa argument going on. But what I find interesting, you don't actually make the things that people find egregious about Weakauras. How would you describe what Weakauras is?
Yeah. I mean, at a high level, it's basically Lego. Like, you have your small bricks and you can build stuff out of it. Obviously, it's a bit more complex, but we give you the tools to piece by piece build together your own UI. And yes, that often gets people confused. Like, we were attacked a lot just when people were talking about removing the ability to follow people with a macro or code, because people were blaming Weakauras for that and calling us like supporting botters, and basically Weakauras is a bot enabling this behavior.
What, the follow command in game? That one?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I mean, why would you do that? Explain yourself, Stan.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, but it was good because Blizzard recently started paying more attention to accessibility, and obviously the follow feature is very important to blind players.
Mm-hmm.
And they carried forth that discussion and defended us, basically, and that was pretty good. That I didn't have to interact with them too much, but we got flamed all the time just for supporting the follow feature.
Is there anything you've been flamed for that you're just like, besides the follow thing? That's obviously absurd. But like, how regularly as Weakauras is this all-encompassing idea really in players' minds? They see all these add-ons around and go, it's Weakauras, because you can build an entire UI, like you said, out of Weakauras. But how regularly do you guys get some sort of direct attack where people are reaching out to you? They're like, hey, you guys, this is broken, what you're doing. Do you find a lot of negative sentimentality, or is it just overwhelmingly positive and people looking for good stuff to do with it?
I wouldn't say attacked. Like, we do get a lot of bug reports that are not related to our add-on itself. Mm-hmm. Which then led us to including the name of the aura that is causing problems into the Blizzard bug pop-up that like when you get a Lua error.
Oh, really?
Yeah, our error reports now have a line at the start that says, hey, this error is coming from your aura, crazy paladin XYZ, whatever. But
interesting.
Most people don't really read those, and we still get a lot of reports that just create a ticket on our bug checker system, and then we can say, hey, this is from that aura, not aura add-on. Please go talk to the creator. So
do you kind of work closely with Blizzard on occasion? In terms of, I mean, it's an add-on that's, used by, I'm not sure, have you got a user count of how many people are using Weakauras?
I can tell you that we have over 100 million downloads on CurseForge.
Yeah. Scary numbers, right?
It is scary. Like, we basically are responsible for the UIs of so many people to work correctly. It's a bit scary, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys fuck up on one side, it's like, oh.
Yeah, and that happens. Like, we do.
Yeah. Of course you do, right? I don't know what goes into the back end, but maybe you could explain a little bit when a new expansion's coming.
Mm-hmm.
What is the team like during that period of time? Like, is it just all based off PTR, or is Blizzard helping you out a little bit with what they're changing? Because they changed the APIs, which we'll get into shortly. Yeah. Usually at expansion time, right? They're like, hey, we're changing some stuff around, and this is definitely going to break some UIs.
So that also feeds in your other question if you're talking to Blizzard, and it's gotten better recently. Like, at the start, there was like not a lot of communication. It's better now. Like, we have our sources that we can talk to, and especially for bigger changes, they've gotten better with letting us know beforehand. But most of the time, it's just, hey, there's a new PTR build. We have systems that automatically look at the changes, and then we go over them, and then we see what they changed. We can ask questions, obviously, but usually it's PTR hits, and then we have to work on it.
Yeah, I mean, when we were talking to Just Wait, when we did our recent add-on look, he was saying that Blizzard has been really good about, and almost encouraging add-on development, adding more and more APIs. So can you take us a little bit through that? Because obviously we're not techies. Most of the people listening to this are not techies. How do you generate, what resources is the game providing that allows for add-ons like Weakauras to exist? Like, what is the basic process that goes on? Because one of the reasons you came back to us was like, it's not exactly the combat log. There's a couple of different things going on there. So give us a general idea of how this works.
So Blizzard provides an API for add-ons to use. An API is an interface that consists of functions and events that you can use and ask the game about stuff. And on the other side, there's the combat log, which, as the name says, it's just a log. It just spams all the actions the game does, mostly combat related to the user or your hard drive if you have logging enabled and so on. And Blizzard didn't have official documentation until a few years ago. So the community took over that job and created a lot of resources. You probably know Wowpedia, the wiki, and that's all community created. There are a few wonderful people in the community like Keitho who work on the wiki and providing the resources for the developers to create add-ons. So that's gotten better, but there's still some gaps, right? We can't automate everything. We can't find every little detail. So sometimes you just have to experiment, try stuff, or maybe ask if you have the contacts.
And these are... So your add-on basically taps into these kinds of code and then sends requests to it, right?
Yeah.
We want this piece of information. And if we could use a real example of that, because I'm really basic with Weakauras. Like, the most advanced thing I ever did was create a Weakaura that tracked how many people were currently in my power word barrier on a priest. I felt very proud of myself for figuring it out eventually. I didn't have to call Noggy or anything. But this is like a constant flow of information backwards and forwards from Weakauras that is tapping into this API and then saying, hey, can I find this out?
Exactly. So that's what our options do. Like, you can, simple example, I want to know the name of my target. So then you create an aura that triggers on a certain event, or you use the template feature that has ready-made Weakauras for you to use. That's fairly underused. We kind of struggle with exposing that in our UI.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a whole feature in Weakauras where you can just click through your way to your own customized Weakaura. You just have to say what you want, and we have templates for each class that include all the buffs, all the talents.
I think I should probably do a video on that. Like, I'll play with it and see what it does. I did not know that existed. I always make them fresh because I used to release my UI to the community. And we would just make them all from scratch. Usually a lot of copy and paste going on. Change the spelling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we are mostly programmers. UI is hard. UX is hard. So that feature is sadly still underused, but we always try to recommend it. But yeah, as example, your target. I'm going to ask the game, give me the name of this target, and then it responds, and then the Weakaura can display the text with the name. That's a simple example.
Okay. So from there, this is where it gets into, I think we should talk about the idea that some people find it going too far, and Blizzard obviously towing the line. So we've had some things in the past that we brought up in our video with that have actually led to Blizzard going, no, you can't do that. We had the radar back in the day, the arrows that actively point you in a different direction, and Star Augur tying things to friendly nameplates, so it made the mechanics very easy. But a lot of the stuff from talking to the guys who utilize this, like, this is actually not something that's easy for Blizzard to fix or to get rid of if they wanted to. And the examples we use were like Queen's Decree from Queen Ashara, which dictated exactly what you do with this mechanic. You don't have to think about it. It doesn't matter. This mechanic might as well not exist because the Weakaura is just going to tell you what to do. I was looking to get your thoughts on how Blizzard could stop that if they wanted to, but can they? Because that's where we were drawing the lines. Like, it seems like if they tried to stop these things, it actually breaks a lot more than we realize. And you were like, well, it's a bit more complicated than that, actually. They can be a little questionable on it. So could you take us through that a little bit?
Yeah, so Blizzard does have a lot of tools here. They have a sledgehammer, and
yes, they do.
they have a scalpel, and they have something in between. And they have used all of these tools before, and they've proven that they can make meaningful changes that don't break other stuff. Like, do you remember brambles on scenarios?
I certainly do. It was the only thing that Weakauras didn't work on, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. So that was the surgical approach. That aura was just not detectable.
Yeah.
But I think the bigger problem is actually encounter design and how it has evolved over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Because to ramp up difficulty, they started including more spells, more mechanics, everything just piles up. And then you get into a situation where you just have so much stuff to pay attention to that you're overloaded. And then you feel forced to use add-ons to filter out the stuff that is only important to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like they recognized that, and with their new accessibility advances that they made recently, they kind of got that they have to change this. I remember them saying something about it in interviews as well. But if you compare the numbers of weak auras used for this raid tier, then it's way less than previous ones. Like Shadowlands was insane, the amount of auras you had for raids.
Mm-hmm.
And this tier, it was actually way less. And the reason for that is that mechanics were easier to understand in game. Like, you could actually tell what you have to do, how you have to react. And I think that's a positive change that they made. And yeah, I hope they go more into that direction, because if they start killing add-ons or add-on features just because the encounters are too complicated, then I don't see the problem on the add-on side.
No, I seriously, because it's basically what we're talking about is action counteraction is what happened. Is they piled more stuff in, people just found more advanced ways of getting around it, and it escalated and escalated because they're like, well, we'll make this very complex thing, but then the guys go, well, actually, I can counter that with a weak aura. It's like, well, we'll make it even more complex. It's like, well, we can still find a way around this, and that's what we're going to spend months doing. And I know Echo, for their jailer weak aura, not jailer, Anduin, with the positions, they spent like 3 months making that weak aura, assuming it was going to be a really difficult mechanic they would have to deal with through the entire fight. And you're right, I remember sometimes when you import the weak auras for the raid, it takes minutes. There's so many that are piling in compared to a few years ago when things were a little simpler. It's nice to see that we don't look at it as an add-on problem, it's an encounter design problem, and they're changing it in that way. If they decided to break stuff, though, can they be very selective about it? Like, it's if they wanted to break something very specific, I don't know if you could give us an example here. I mean, I look at the last raid tier. There were, like, you're correct, there weren't many weak auras used that were important. We had, like, Razageth tracking the shield, and a timer till it ran out, that you could get that, but that wasn't particularly complex in terms of what it was doing. I'm trying to think, did we have anything major in the vaults that was weak aura defined? Not particularly.
I don't think so. Yeah, that was really good. Like, I like that fact. Like,
yeah,
I don't like that people have to depend on weak auras. I want people to want to use it because they enjoy working with it and creating their own UI. I don't want people to be forced to install like weak auras pack XYZ that is taking 10 minutes to import just because their raid leader said so. And then they're maybe also running DBM or bigwigs on the side, and they have duplicate messages for everything on their screen, and they have no idea what's going on anymore. Because customizing these packs also takes time and knowledge. Like, you probably don't need all those messages and alerts in the pack.
Yeah, the first thing I do is start deleting after I import. I was like, I don't need that. I don't need this. Yeah, it's a hassle, right? It's just interfering with my gameplay. It's like, okay, now I have to sit here and go through these, and there's some weak auras. I know we did. some testing, some people's download their Weakaura packs. It's like, okay, this is so much unnecessary information that the game is throwing at me, and you have to then cipher through and delete it. But let's come to your design is obviously creating basically this nice GUI, this nice user interface that people can use. It can get extremely complex. We saw recently, again, coming back to Echo's raid tools, which now seems to add to the dungeon journal, so they can import auras via the dungeon journal directly. What's the most like amazing use of your add-on that you've seen? That's like, Jesus Christ, I didn't even think it could do that.
So when they changed stuff about the mailbox API, like where people were getting scammed with auras that were sending gold to people.
Right.
We talked to Blizzard about that, and it was at the end their problem, because that API should have been protected by them. Like, they have the choice to protect APIs to require a mouse click, for example. And that was missing for the mailbox. So they approached us and told us, hey, people are just getting scammed here. And then we had a little discussion and how we want to approach it. And for a short while, we blocked the ability for Weakauras to send mails. And that is when someone reached out and said, hey, why are you doing this? I'm not using this for any malicious behavior. I built my own system of organizing my alts and ingredients and crafting mats. So this guy basically had an alt that he would mail everything to, and that alt would run a Weakaura that automatically sorted stuff into different bags and send it to different alts. And that was kind of amazing to see.
Holy shit, I want that so badly.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So that was a positive example, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is like so useful. Like in game, like an auto sort, like I can tag this always goes here, this always goes here, send it out and get it done. That's cool. Anything in the raid world that you were like, huh, I don't think you could do that? Or do they keep it pretty simple, even though it looks pretty complex to us as outsiders? Is it all pretty simple stuff the guys are doing?
So for me, it's always impressive to see if they're doing really mathy stuff, like the direction arrows, the radars. That is always pretty cool to see. You could do that without Weakauras, right? But it's just easier to do it in there. And that is always pretty impressive for me, yeah. But it's nothing groundbreaking really in the last tier or the one before. I mean, you had lots of dread with the...
the Among Us Weakaura?
Yeah, the Among Us Weakaura, yeah.
And that could only work by... That needed player input, though, right? Still, you had to...
Exactly, so because they did properly hide something there.
How do they do that, then? So we talked about Brambles. We could talk about Among Us there.
Yeah, I guess we skipped over that question, right? How
it's an important thing. Stuff. They are completely able to make Weakauras not work if they want to. So how do they do that?
So how that works is that basically everything in World of Warcraft is a buff or an aura. Like you've probably seen in the hotfix notes that they even do class buffs with auras, like 10% on all abilities for Mistweaver or whatever. That's all done via auras. But you don't want your players to see those auras all the time, so they are hidden. So if
hold. You're blowing my fucking mind right now. They're not actually changing the damage values as a number. They just apply like a buff, an actual hidden buff.
Yep. That's how that works.
No way. I had no idea.
Yep.
That's why? Why wouldn't you just change the damage values? Is it just easier, simpler work?
Easier. Yeah. With all the scaling tag and level squish and whatever you have, that's way easier to just do it that way. You just enter a percentage value and then it works.
In theory, okay, this would never happen, I imagine, but in theory, if it works if this is how they've done level squishes and things like that, is there a way that like these debuffs could click something and the auras disappear and then suddenly we've got like a vanilla WoW character, your character logs in with just absurd HP values like Mist's values or something?
No, they didn't do the actual squishes like that.
Okay, good.
I just meant that because it's easier with all the scaling tag that they have to use auras that are applied when the character logs in, basically. That's just easier for them, but the actual squishes are in data as far as I know, so that wouldn't happen. But what sometimes happens is that they slip up and we can see those hidden auras. And that has been used in some Weakauras, in some raid tiers, and then hotfixed and changed quite a few times already, Because when they introduce a new API for something, like recently they've been doing performance improvements, They added new APIs for that, and they just forgot to filter out hidden stuff sometimes, and then you can see those and can use those in Weakauras to get some stuff that you shouldn't see. But when they fixed that, it's gone again and full of lots of dread. It was the case that they fixed it, I think. It was possible at some point, I forgot. Like we had working Weakauras that could detect it. And but then they had to land on the interactable stuff, which we really don't like. Because
explain that.
Clickable Weakauras are a real problem. Mostly because that means you have to create stuff in combat, and that so Blizzard has a system in place that's called a Taint system, and most of the stuff is protected in combat, and if you start creating or touching stuff in combat, it taints. And when it taints, that taint spreads across all add-ons. And you've probably gotten the some add-on has been blocked from doing an action in your interface pop-up error, right?
Yes,
so that's Taint, basically. And the add-on that gets blamed there is completely random. Like, it has spread so far from the source that it's really hard to trace back where it originally came from. And we get blamed a lot for just that saying Weakauras when it was just some other thing or a clickable Weakaura. Because they caused that for sure.
Right, and it's happening so fast and it spreads so quick. The detector can't just decide, oh, it was definitely that add-on.
It's kind of how that system works, that it always reports some at some level in the chain, and there are commands to trace it back better and get you a log of that, but that's nothing a normal user would do. A normal user just gets the message that says Weakauras blocked your shit and now you have to disable it, and then we get the complaint.
And okay, is it something the team find frustrating, or I know when I spoke to the people at Raider.io, because they obviously got a massive brunt of the sort of frustration in the community when Raider.io was, the thing, and it still is for a lot of people. Like, although Blizzard just added it to the game, is there a lot of frustration internally with people? The game's actually kicking out reports saying it's Weakauras. That kind of stuff happening, or is it just something you guys accept? It's part of the job. It's just the way it is.
We accepted it, but we are having fun with it, right? Like, we have bot commands in our Discords. When someone posts a clickable Weakaura, you get roasted for that immediately. Like, we can't really provide support for that. All we can do is tell them, please delete those, don't use those. They're known to cause problems. Please don't do it. But you will always have the people that say, hey, this never caused an issue to me before. Why should I delete it? But
interesting.
We don't have the time to explain it to everyone. So we have that automated bot message, basically. And we do get the bug reports. We have a bug report template that mentions it, I think. And
that's awesome. So in terms of how Blizzard would, assuming they were like, oh, okay, we don't want boss mods anymore. Is that even realistic? Like, to do that without affecting other parts of the game? Because we come back to that arrow one, and as we've shown, it's like, in the real world, this still works, right? In the open world, you have your leveling add-on. It has a dynamic arrow telling you exactly where to go. But they did disable that in a raid environment. And we know they could do these hidden buffs that exist, and they can conceal them so you can't see them. In terms of, I don't think they'd ever want to get rid of boss mods entirely. They've been a staple of the game since 2004. But is there less legitimacy to our initial opinion, which was that, hey, if you try to disable X, it would also butterfly effect into innocuous add-ons and things like that. Can they be that specific to, like, okay, we just don't want you doing that one thing? Because what we've seen is that sledgehammer approach you talked about is like, hey, we don't like what you're doing at Star Augur. We're just going to kill this entirely. We don't like what you're doing at Mythic Archimonde. We're killing the radar entirely. That's the things we notice.
Yeah, so they can totally do that. Like, as you've noticed with the friendly nameplate stuff, that works outside of raids. So they can disable any function of the UI inside of raids. They could potentially just disable add-ons flat out. Or, disable certain APIs in the raid would probably be the easiest. Like, they can just flip a switch there. Yeah,
and they can shut the whole thing down. That's so intriguing. Is there anything? What's the future of Weakauras right now? Like, what is your goal of the next few years? I assume you want to solve things like, hey, this is what you guys are all using it for. We're going to build templates for it, but none of you can use it. It's really annoying. And then you come and ask on the Discord, how do I make this Weakaura? It's like, use the template, please. But what is the future plan for a project like Weakauras? Like expanding to other games? Or in WoW, has there been something you'd be like, I wish we could do this, but it's, it's a big long-term project to get that done.
So we are all pretty busy with other stuff as well. Like, I'm not only working on Weakauras, I'm working on other projects as well, and I have a real job, and everyone else on the team, I think, at the moment does as well. So we try to spend our time on what we think is the most impactful in terms of features or changes. And at the moment, it's mostly really using or enabling all the new features that Dragonflight came with. I think we have everything covered, but like some specific things like essences and evoker stuff has been delayed from the initial release from Weakauras a bit. But otherwise, we're mostly worried about performance and improving that all the time. And the user experience and providing better defaults for everything. Like, we analyze the use cases because obviously we also get contacted by those big guilds who make those packs a lot, and they have feature requests, and we work with them. And sometimes they even develop the features for us, right? We are an open source repository on GitHub, so people can just propose changes to us, and then we can discuss it with them if we like it or not, request changes, and like everyone is invited to suggest features or implement and make them themselves, but obviously can't take everything. That's always a bit of a struggle sometimes, that you have to decide, hey, in theory that is cool, but can we just that like would 1% of our users would use this? Do we want to introduce another point that could fail at some point or could cause performance issues for the other 99%? And just your typical software development stuff.
Yeah, I mean, resources are finite, right? And I had direct experience with you guys for that coming into Shadowlands. Is we just wanted a drop down for legendary equipped. So I remember tweeting out to you guys. I was like, hey, can we just have a drop down for legendary equipped? Because it'd make my life so much easier than typing these out with different item levels and all sorts of crap that needs to go with it. And you got back straight away. You're like, yep, we're working on it. We'll get there. You know what I mean? It's on the list of things to do. Well, it's nice that
we are all playing, right? Yeah. We are all players ourselves. Like, not everyone is playing all the time. Like, we do our breaks, and sometimes these are longer breaks, and then we come back. And it's a good thing that we are 4 people, so people can take a step away from the game and then come back. But
Oh, that's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time. This was really enlightening, especially the hidden buff stuff. And I like that we can clear up that they can be very, very specific with what they're trying to do without swinging the sledgehammer. Like I said, they can use that scalpel effect to delicately.
Sometimes it's not very clear to us why they do some things. And I wish they would do more public communication about that, because we might be able to get some answer over 3 back channels at some point, but like public blog posts used to be a thing at some point.
Well, you're preaching to the choir on that one, as I'm sure you know.
Yeah. And there's also currently stuff in the API that is just so annoying to deal with, and so much stuff broke in 10.0.
Oh, interesting, because in fact, we can talk about this now, as I had a meeting with Blizzard yesterday, is they're doing UI++ in 10.1, and they didn't tell me what it was. I believe that has just become public knowledge as we're talking here. We had a meeting with Blizzard yesterday about 10.1, and one of their selling points was just a little line at the end of a presentation, is that we're doing UI++, edit++. Whether that's going to solve any of those issues, I have no idea. Probably not. I imagine it's just integrating more tools into the UI, but be interesting to see when we actually get our hands on it as to what it's going to look like.
Yeah, what we heard about that is that basically they couldn't finish the UI work in time realistically for 10.0, and they couldn't for 10.05, and they couldn't for 10.0. It's just too much. They have to go over all the systems, redesign. Like, they want a good design that is applied to all of their frames. Like, if you look at it right now, there are so many things that are looking different. Some are the old style, some are the new. And then they are reworking a lot of stuff. And there's also a situation where they sometimes ask us, hey, Do you guys know if anyone is using this API or that frame? Can we remove that? Maybe. So that's the conversations that we have with them sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it was odd because we didn't have things like moving cast bars, which is like, okay, this is dead on arrival. If I can't move my cast bar, I'm sorry to tell you, Blizz, I want to use this thing, but if I can't move my cast bar, that's not happening. So we'll see. They're working on it. It should be good. But yeah, Stan, thank you so much for this. This was really enlightening, and I think for a lot of people, as to how some of these back-end things work. Is there anything else you want to make sure people know about in concerns of Weakauras or add-ons that's a common misconception? Or anything like that we can get out to the public?
Oh, well, first, thank you for having me. It was a great surprise that you wanted to talk to me. And
of course.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. So, maybe that you can update your Weakauras. That's a big issue that some of those big pack creators have. Like, you can actually update those. You don't install them and that's it. They are usually getting updates multiple times a week. We made an app for that is called Weakauras Companion that you can find on our website. And that takes care of updating the Weakauras for you. Like, you run it and then you get a prompt in game and then you update them in game. And what it also does... Yeah, what it also does is creates backups of your Weakauras, because we have so many people who decide that just pressing the power button on their PC is good enough to turn it off, and then they turn their PC back on and all their UI is gone. Or Blizzard just, there are also still bugs where Blizzard just deletes your saved variables, basically. It's been better, but it happens, so backups are always nice.
Yeah, I had something like that. It wouldn't let me use flight points in Shadowlands. It was so weird. Yeah, it just wouldn't let me click them. Everything else works, just not flight points.
Interesting.
I installed Weakauras, I turned Weakauras off and it worked fine. I don't know. I don't know which. I'm not coming to you with the problem. I'm just saying
it was probably some aura. Yeah, that's probably also something that we could improve, like adding a system to test which auras are causing your problems. But yeah, that's also targeted at 1% or 2% of the users again. So we have to see if that makes sense at some point. And yeah, use templates. Yeah, use templates.
I'll do a video on that. I'll look into that. I'm kind of curious about it myself.
I can help you with that video if you want. We can do templates together.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll try and figure it out myself, and if I get stuck, I'll come to you, because I'll go in with I've got the newbie eyes. I haven't made any mega advanced Weakauras. I've made some stuff that looks fancy, but it's really basic. It just looks fancy. So I'll have a play with that, and then I'll message you if I run into a wall or anything. But if it's super easy, I'll just let you know. Like,
it should be. I hope so. Like, it's always hard to test if you build something yourself. Mm-hmm. There's like the give it to your mom test, where you just sit someone completely non-technical in front of your screen and let them test stuff. Yep. That's usually pretty good. But yeah, any feedback is welcome.
I've had some game devs get angry at me because, like, don't do that. Well, this feels like the obvious way to do it. It's like, no, stop. For sure. Well, thank you so much, Stan. And I hope this enlightens a lot of people as some things, because I know I have several things here where I was like, huh, no way. That's how that works. But we'll reach out to you again and catch up when there's something happening on the horizon, or you could do the same to us if there's something happening that you want to tell us about.
Yep, sounds great. Looking forward to 10.1.
I am too, because I've seen the preview now. It looks really good. We're getting snail races, which I imagine are ripped entirely from Guild Wars 2. But hopefully they're as good. And we're going underground. We're going to be flying around in a big cavern.
That was
Depot Mikata.
That was data mine previously, right? I think I saw that, Yeah, that's pretty cool.
That is some really cool stuff. Matching mounts and armors, if you're a Transmog fan, which they've not done, as far as I know, and it actually looks sick.
Like automatically?
No, you'll be able to get like a raid set, but it's actually a world set. But they also have world mounts that match that armor as well. So they're like armored mounts that also match your player armor. They look really cool. But they're not showing the picture, which is a bit of a pain in the ass. I've seen the picture. It does look cool. They're not publicly releasing the picture, as far as I know. So, trust me on it. It does look awesome, but just not allowed to show it, because Blizzard was like, "We're going to show you guys, but we're not showing the public yet." I was like, oh, "Okay, that's kind of mean." So I'm definitely going to talk about it.
Yeah,
that's Blizzard in a nutshell. Sometimes. All right, thanks, Sam.
Thank you.